I thought my husband was on a business trip in London. It turns out he was in New York City, planning my death with my own best friend. The morning air in the lavish Greenwich estate felt cold, a stark contrast to the warmth Nora was trying to create in their master bedroom. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, falling upon an expensive leather suitcase lying open on the Persian rug. 5 days, Nora murmured, her hands busy folding one of Ryan's crisp linen shirts. It feels like an eternity. Her husband, Ryan, smiled from the vanity mirror. He was combing through his thick, jet-black hair. In his mid-30s, Ryan was the very definition of success, charismatic, handsome, and heading a key division at his father's corporation. Only 5 days, honey. This project in London is crucial. Once it's done, I promise, we'll take a real vacation, just the two of us. No interruptions. He walked over, wrapping his arms around Nora from behind and resting his chin on her shoulder. His expensive cologne, a mix of oud and tobacco, wafted around her a scent she had always associated with safety. You sure you'll be okay here alone? This house gets quiet. Nora laughed softly, turning in his arms. I'm not a child, Ryan. Besides, Ben is here. At the mention of his name, Nora felt a subtle shift in Ryan's embrace. His muscles tensed for a fraction of a second before relaxing again. Ah, right, Ben. Ben was Ryan's younger brother, the dark cloud in their otherwise perfect marriage. Since he had moved into their guest pavilion 3 months ago at Ryan's insistence, so he could keep an eye on him during his college semester, his attitude toward Nora had been nothing short of frigid. It was a pure, undisguised animosity. As if on cue, heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway. The half-open door to their bedroom revealed Ben's figure. He was lanky, disheveled, and stared at Nora with eyes as dark as Ryan's, but utterly devoid of warmth. "Morning, Ben," Nora offered, her smile faltering slightly. "Breakfast is ready downstairs." Ben ignored her. His gaze was fixed on Ryan. "Bro, I need to borrow the car in the main garage. Where are the keys?" "Use your own car, Ben. I bought it for you," Ryan replied. His voice was calm, but Nora could hear the undertone of reprimand. "Gas tank's on empty, and I'm broke," Ben snapped. Nora was about to offer her credit card when Ben finally looked at her. His glare was sharp, full of malice. "No need to trouble yourself, sister-in-law. I don't need your pity." The title sounded like an insult. Ben turned and stalked away, his angry footsteps pounding down the hall. Nora sighed, the morning's warmth vanishing instantly. "I'm sorry about him, Nor," Ryan said, stroking her cheek. "He's just going through a hard time. Ever since Mom died, he's been rebellious. He's just not used to seeing me happy with another woman." Nora forced a smile. "I've been here for 2 years, Ryan," she thought, but didn't say it. She didn't want to ruin their last morning together. She hugged her husband tightly. "It's okay, I understand." Ryan held her closer. "This is why I love you. You're too understanding." The warmth returned. Whether it was real or not, Nora chose to believe it. That evening, dinner felt like a poorly rehearsed play. It was Ryan's last night before his trip, and Nora had asked the housekeeper to prepare his favorite meal, Wagyu steak with a truffle mushroom sauce. The long mahogany dining table was adorned with candles, a futile attempt to create intimacy. Ben, of course, ruined everything. He showed up 15 minutes late, still wearing the same faded t-shirt and ripped jeans from the morning. He sat down, grabbed a bottle of Fiji water, and chugged from it, ignoring the crystal glass at his place setting. "So, how were your classes today, Ben?" Nora tried to start a conversation, her voice sounding overly cheerful in the quiet room. Ben just shrugged, busy hacking at his steak with a knife. "Fine. Any plans for the weekend? Maybe you want to have some friends over? We could have a barbecue by the pool." Nora tried again, genuinely wanting him to feel welcome. Ben slammed his knife and fork down with a loud clatter. He stared at Nora, his cold gaze seemingly skinning her alive. "Why?" he hissed. "What do you mean, why?" Nora stammered. "Why do you pretend to care? You want to show off to my friends that you're the lady of the manor?" "No thanks." they wouldn't be interested. Nora's breath caught in her throat. The words stung like a slap. Ben. Ryan's voice wasn't loud, but it was sharp and full of authority. He placed his napkin on the table, his handsome face hardened with disappointment, a disappointment not aimed at Nora. "Watch your mouth," Ryan continued, his tone calm but lethal. "Nora is your sister-in-law. She is my wife. She's only trying to be kind to you after everything she's done for this family. Is this how you thank her?" Ben stared back at Ryan with a strange look in his eyes, a mix of anger, fear, and something else Nora couldn't decipher. "I'm done," he said curtly, shoving his chair back and standing up. "Ben, sit down. We're not finished talking," Ryan commanded. But Ben was already gone. Storming out of the dining room. "I'm full," he yelled from the hallway, followed by the sound of his door slamming shut in the guest pavilion. Silence. Nora stared at her plate, her appetite completely gone. Hot tears welled in her eyes. She felt like a failure. "Ryan, I'm sorry. Did I say something wrong?" she whispered. Suddenly, Ryan was beside her, kneeling and taking her hand. His face softened with regret. "Shh, no, baby. It's not you. You didn't do anything wrong. He did." He gently wiped away a tear that escaped down her cheek. "I'm so sorry. I should have been harder on him. He's making you miserable right before I have to leave." Nora shook her head, guilt now mixing with pity for her husband. "It's okay, Ryan. Maybe he's right. Maybe I'm trying too hard." "Don't you ever think that," Ryan said, kissing her forehead. "You have a heart of gold. He's just too blind to see it. Now, come on. Don't let him ruin our last night." Ryan managed to make Nora smile. Inwardly, she vowed to be more patient. She had no idea that behind her husband's tender gaze was a cold satisfaction. Ryan had succeeded. Nora was now isolated, feeling guilty for something that wasn't her fault, and seeing him as her only protector. The sky was still a pre-dawn purple when their car arrived at the private terminal of Teterboro Airport, a world of luxury that separated them from the bustle of commercial flights. Nora held Ryan's arm as they walked across the polished marble floor. "Call me as soon as you land, okay?" she asked. "Of course. And you, make sure you lock all the doors. Don't go out alone too much," Ryan replied, his words sounding more like a father's advice than a husband's. They stopped just before the security checkpoint. Ryan turned and cupped Nora's face. 5 days. I'll be counting down." He kissed her deeply. Just then, the phone in Ryan's suit jacket vibrated violently. He pulled away from the kiss, letting out a small growl of annoyance at the interruption. He glanced at the screen. The name was unfamiliar to Nora. "1 second, honey," he said, stepping a few feet away and turning his back to her for privacy. Nora watched him. At first, Ryan just listened. Then she saw his shoulders tense. The man who had been so affectionate 5 seconds ago was gone, replaced by someone rigid and cold. "I don't want excuses." Ryan's voice was low, but Nora could catch its intensity. It was different from how he scolded Ben. This wasn't a reprimand. It was a command. Make sure everything is handled according to the plan. No mistakes. None. There was a pause as he listened again. "I don't care how you do it. Just get it done." He ended the call with a sharp, decisive tap. 1 second. 2 seconds. Ryan took a deep breath, and when he turned back around, his $1,000,000 smile was perfectly in place. But Nora, standing so close, saw it a split-second delay before the smile reached his eyes. "Who was that, Ryan?" "Sounded serious," Nora asked, trying to sound casual even as a sliver of unease pierced her heart. Ryan laughed lightly, waving his hand dismissively. "Just the team at the office. They're panicking because I'm leaving. They can't do anything without me." The explanation was perfectly plausible. Ryan was a perfectionist, a leader. Of course, his subordinates would be frantic. Nora immediately felt foolish. Of course, it's work. "Oh, okay. Pour them," she said, the unease evaporating. "Exactly. That's why I need to get over there," Ryan said, kissing her forehead one last time. "Take care of yourself, Nora. I love you." "You got it." "Boss," Nora teased. Love you too. She stood there, waving as Ryan passed through security, his tall, confident figure disappearing around a corner. The brief image of his hard expression on the phone flashed in her mind, but she quickly pushed it away. It was just work stress. Her husband worked too hard, that was all. The house felt 10 times bigger and 100 times emptier without Ryan. Nora spent the first day keeping busy, tidying his home office, sorting some books, and having a long video call with her mother. But when night fell, the loneliness began to feel suffocating. Ryan had sent only one brief text hours ago. Landed safely. First meeting is starting. Looks tough. Might be busy. Love you. Nora understood. She made a cup of chamomile tea and tried to read in the living room. The silence was broken only by the ticking of the large grandfather clock in the foyer. Ben had been invisible all day. Nora assumed he was in his room in the guest pavilion, separated from the main house by a small garden. Around 11 p.m., Nora decided to go to bed. As she walked down the second-floor corridor toward the master suite, she stopped. She heard a voice not from the guest pavilion, but from a guest room in the same wing as her own. Did Ben move rooms? She crept closer. The door was slightly ajar. She could hear Ben's voice, muffled but tense. He was in the middle of a heated phone argument. "I don't care. I need more time," Ben seethed, his voice trembling with panic. Nora froze. This wasn't a typical argument. "This is insane. This whole plan is insane. I don't want to be a part of this anymore." There was a pause as the person on the other end spoke. "Don't threaten me. You think I'm scared?" Ben shouted, though he sounded terrified. "You can't." Crash. The sound of something heavy being thrown against a wall made Nora jump. She pressed her ear closer to the door, her heart hammering. She had to know if her brother-in-law was in trouble. "Listen," Ben said again, his voice now lower, almost a desperate sob. "I was forced into it. I know I was wrong, but I've been under so much pressure. I can't breathe." Another silence. Okay, fine, but this is the last time. After this is over, you consider my debt paid. All of it." The call ended. An oppressive silence followed. Nora quickly stepped back into the shadows of the hallway. Debt. The word echoed in her mind, and her thoughts immediately jumped to a conclusion. Oh, God, he's into gambling debts, or loan sharks. It would explain everything: his abrasive attitude, his explosive anger, his need for cash for the car that morning. He was being squeezed by creditors. A wave of immense pity washed over her, replacing her fear. Poor kid. He must be suffering so much. No wonder Ryan always looked so weary when discussing Ben. Her husband was probably trying to cover up his brother's problems. Nora decided not to interfere. This was a family matter. She would wait for Ryan to come home and tell him what she'd heard. Ryan would know how to fix it. She hurried into her room, locking the door. That night, Nora slept fitfully, feeling anxious not for herself, but for her troubled brother-in-law. She didn't know what time it was, maybe 2 or 3 in the morning, when a sound woke her from her restless sleep. Tap. It was very quiet, very hesitant. Nora opened her eyes in the pitch blackness of the master bedroom. She held her breath. Just the old house settling, she thought, or the wind. Tap, tap, tap. This time it was louder, faster. It wasn't the wind. It was a knock on her bedroom door. There was an urgency to it that made the hair on her arms stand up. "Who is it?" Nora's voice was hoarse with fear. The house was supposed to be empty, except for her and Ben. No answer. Just silence. Panic began to set in. Ben's creditors? Did they break in? Tap. The knock was frantic now, as if someone was barely restraining themselves from pounding on the door. "Please." A choked whisper came from behind the thick wood. "And Nora, please, open up, quick." Nora went still, her world screeching to a halt. She recognized the voice. It was Ben, but he never called her Nora. Never. It was always a formal, sarcastic sister-in-law or nothing at all. Something was terribly, terribly wrong. Adrenaline surged through her. She jumped out of bed, not bothering to turn on a light, and ran to the door. Her hands trembled as she undid the double deadbolt Ryan had insisted on installing. She opened the door just a crack. Ben practically fell through the opening, pushing the door wide. Nora gasped and stumbled back. The young man standing before her was not the arrogant, cold Ben she knew. This was a terrified boy. His face was ghostly pale in the moonlight, filtering through the hallway window. His eyes were red and swollen, darting wildly as if looking for something in the darkness behind him. He was shaking violently from head to toe, as if in the grip of a high fever. He was still wearing the same t-shirt, now soaked with a cold sweat. "Ben, what's wrong? What happened? Was it the creditors?" Nora grabbed his arm. "No," Ben cut her off, his voice ragged and desperate. He gripped both of Nora's shoulders, his hold so tight it hurt. "Nora, I'm so sorry," he sobbed, tears finally breaking free from his terror-filled eyes. "Everything, how I've been acting. I swear, I'm sorry. I was just scared. I didn't have a choice." "Scared of what? Ben, what is going on?" Nora shook him, trying to make sense of it all. "Your husband," Ben choked out, as if he'd just run a marathon. "Ryan." Nora's heart felt like it was being squeezed in a vice. "Ryan? What do you mean? Ryan's on a business trip in London." "He's not in London." Ben's voice cracked into a strangled cry. He looked Nora straight in the eye, total despair radiating from him. He lied. All of it was a lie. "Ben, this doesn't make any sense. What are you talking about?" "There's no time." Ben cut her off again, his grip on her shoulders tightening. He pulled her away from the doorway, as if it were dangerous. "Listen to me, Nora. Please, just listen to me this one time." He swallowed hard, his lips trembling. "Your husband is planning something very bad for you. I don't know the details, but it's big. It's about everything." Ben's eyes darted around Nora's luxurious bedroom. "You need to secure your assets. Right now, anything in your name, documents, jewelry, bank accounts. Secure it," he urged, "and then leave." His voice dropped to a near whisper. "Go back to your father. Call your father right now. Get out of this house tonight. Don't wait for morning." Nora stood frozen in shock, her brain refusing to process his words. This had to be a nightmare. This was Ben, the boy who hated her. This had to be a trap. I don't understand." "You don't have to understand right now." Ben shook her again in frustration. "Just trust me, Nora. Just for tonight." He let go of her and stumbled back a step, the fear overwhelming him again. He looked at Nora with a gaze that would haunt her forever, a look of lethal guilt. "You'll find out everything when he gets back. If you're still here when he gets back, it'll be too late." Without another word, Ben turned and fled from her room. His panicked footsteps echoed down the corridor, down the stairs, and then faded into nothing. Nora was left alone in the doorway of her open bedroom. The silence was cold and terrifying, and for the first time in her life, she felt true, absolute terror. Her eyes fell on her phone on the nightstand. Ben's warning echoed in her head. "Your husband is planning something. Go back to your father. You'll find out when he gets back." She was in shock, but deep down, in the pit of her stomach, the pieces were starting to click into place. Ben's forced cruelty, Ryan's angry phone call at the airport, the lie. She believed him. Nora stood frozen in the doorway, the cold night air pricking the skin beneath her silk pajamas. The echo of Ben's frantic footsteps had faded, leaving her in the oppressive silence of the mansion. Shock was an understatement, but beneath it, adrenaline was sharpening her senses. Her mind raced, denying and validating his words in the same breath. "Ryan is planning something. He's not in London. Secure your assets. Go back to your father." Ben's warning was too specific, his terror too real to be ignored. She couldn't just sit and wait. She couldn't call her father based on her brother-in-law's panic attack alone. She needed more. She needed why. She rushed out of her room, her bare feet slapping against the cold marble floor. She didn't run to the guest pavilion. Ben was too panicked to have gone back there. She ran to the guest room in her wing. the one where she'd heard him arguing on the phone hours earlier. The door was ajar. She pushed it open. He was there. In the middle of the messy room, a large backpack lay on the bed, half filled with clothes stuffed in haphazardly. Ben was frantically pulling open desk drawers, searching for something. Ben. Nora's voice sounded foreign to her own ears, firm, cold, with no trace of the naive wife she had been just hours ago. Ben jumped, nearly crying out. He spun around, his eyes wild. "Nora, why are you still here? Leave." "I'm not leaving until you explain everything," Nora said, stepping inside and shutting the door behind her. "Explain what you meant. Who are you afraid of?" "Ryan." The name hung in the air. Ben stopped moving. He stared at Nora, and the mask of anger he had worn for months shattered, revealing the face of a broken, cornered young man. He's the one who told me to do it," Ben whispered, his voice cracking. "Told you to do what?" Nora demanded. "Everything," Ben said, scrubbing a hand over his face. "To stay away from you, to be rude to you, to ignore you at the dinner table, to make you feel unwelcome in your own home." A wave of nausea washed over Nora. Why? Why would he do that? Ben let out a hollow, broken laugh that was more sob than sound. "Because he wanted you isolated. He wanted you to have no one in this house but him. He wanted you to think he was the only good person, the one protecting you from his asshole brother-in-law." He swallowed hard. "So that when he executed his plan, you'd have nowhere to turn." "And you just went along with it?" Nora asked, her voice trembling with rage. "I didn't have a choice," Ben yelled, punching the wall beside him. "You think I wanted to? You think I enjoyed this?" He stumbled to the bed and collapsed, his head in his hands. "I had debts, huge gambling debts from college. I thought I could handle it, but they just kept growing." Nora's mind flashed back to the phone call she'd overheard. Debt, pressure. "I thought the loan sharks were going to destroy me," Ben continued, his voice muffled. "But it was worse. My own brother found out first." He lifted his head, his eyes bloodshot. "He didn't help me, Nora. He didn't give me advice. He bought my debt. He paid off the sharks, and in an instant, I owed him. Not as a brother, as an asset." Nora finally understood. The hold Ryan had over Ben wasn't physical, it was financial and legal ruin. "The phone call you heard earlier," Ben said, as if reading her mind. "That wasn't a creditor. That was Ryan. He called from a local number. He was making sure I was ready to play my part." "What part?" "I was supposed to be a witness," Ben said bitterly. After his plan worked, I was supposed to testify that you were depressed, that you were saying strange things, that you were probably careless. The words stabbed at Nora. "Why did you change your mind? Why tell me now?" Ben looked at her, pure terror returning to his eyes. "Because on that call, he said the plan was being moved up, and he said something that made my blood run cold. He said, 'Just keep Nora at home until I get back, and if she doesn't cooperate, make sure the policy is active.' Then he laughed. He said, 'A little accident can always happen.'" A deadly silence filled the room. "An accident, Ben," Nora said slowly, her voice as cold as ice. "I need to believe you, but this is your word against his. I need proof." Ben stared at her. As if just realizing his warning wasn't enough, he thought hard, his panicked mind searching. Proof, he muttered. He went back to his backpack, rummaging through the mess. He gave me something, a month ago." Ben pulled out his thick wallet, opened it, and from a hidden compartment behind the card slots, he produced a key. It wasn't an ordinary key. It was small, made of dull silver, with a complex, serrated design. A safe key. "He said it was a duplicate key to the safe in his study," Ben explained, his hand trembling as he gave it to Nora. He said, "Hold on to this, Ben, just for emergencies. If anything happens to me, you're the only one who can open it. Don't tell Nora. She's too innocent for this stuff." Nora stared at the cool metal in her palm. "I know what he was doing," Ben hissed. "He wasn't giving it to me for his protection. He gave it to me so my fingerprints would be on it. So if the safe was ever opened, I'd be implicated with him. It's a trap. Nora clenched her fist around the key. Where is the safe? In the study, Ben answered. Behind your wedding portrait. The irony was sickening. Nora turned, her resolve hardening. Let's go. Show me. Nora, this is crazy. If he finds out, he won't find out. Nora cut him off. He's busy in London. Now move. You stand guard at the door. They slipped out of the guest room. The massive house was silent, every shadow a threat. Nora led the way downstairs to Ryan's magnificent study. The familiar scent of oud and tobacco, once a source of comfort, now made her stomach churn. Hurry, Ben urged, standing in the doorway, nervously watching the hall. Nora approached the wall behind Ryan's mahogany desk, where a large oil painting of them on their wedding day hung. Nora, smiling blissfully, Ryan, holding her with an adoring gaze. Liar. With some effort, Nora pushed the frame. It slid silently to the side on a hidden track, revealing a sleek, black digital safe embedded in the wall. There was a keypad and a small, concealed manual keyhole. Nora inserted the key from Ben. There was a quiet, satisfying mechanical click. She turned it, and the heavy safe door swung open with a soft hiss. Nora's breath hitched. Ben closed the study door, giving them a tense privacy as Nora switched on a small desk lamp. Its warm, yellow light illuminated the contents. The safe was meticulously organized. Ryan was a methodical man. There were stacks of cash, dollars, and euros that Nora ignored. There were several jewelry boxes she recognized as Ryan's family heirlooms. But her eyes were drawn to a rack of documents at the top. Unlike the other stacks, these were arranged in dark leather folders. The first one that caught her eye had a neatly typed label, Assets, and Ashford. Her hand trembled slightly as she pulled the folder out. It was thick. She opened it on Ryan's desk. The first page was a copy of the deed to a beach house in the Hamptons. It was an inheritance from her late mother. She scanned it quickly. Then, she saw the second page, a deed of sale. Her heart stopped. It listed her name as the seller, with her signature, a signature that was eerily perfect, but not hers. Below it, the buyer was listed as Horizon Global Ventures, a company she had never heard of. She turned the page. Her luxury Soho loft, also inherited from her mother, sold to the same company. The forged signature again. Page after page. Every valuable property asset she had brought into the marriage had been transferred. He sold everything, Nora whispered, her voice hollow. What? Ben crept closer, forgetting his post for a moment. He saw the documents on the desk, and his face went white. That's your mother's inheritance, isn't it? Nora didn't answer. She went back to the safe. There was one more folder that caught her eye. The label was simple, Policy, Family. She opened it. Inside was a single, thick document. It wasn't Ryan's policy or a joint one. It was a life insurance policy. Insured, Nora Ashford. Beneficiary, Ryan Sterling. Payout amount, $50 million. Date of activation, the 1st of August 2025, 3 months ago, exactly when Ben moved in and began his psychological torment. Nora staggered back, her hands gripping the edge of the desk to keep from falling. The document fluttered from her grasp to the floor. This wasn't about money anymore. This wasn't theft or fraud. Ben's warning about an accident and an active policy clanged in her ears like a death knell. He's going to kill me, she said aloud, not as a question, but as a fact. Ryan planned to take all her assets, and then, after she was gone, he would collect another $50 million as the grieving husband. Ben, the brother-in-law, would testify that she was depressed and careless, making the accident seem plausible. The nausea she'd felt earlier turned to a cold, clear, and lethal rage. The naive, loving wife had died in this study, right in front of her own wedding portrait. Oh my God. Ben trembled, seeing the look on Nora's face and the document on the floor. We have to go. We have to run, Nora. Now. No, Nora said, her voice as sharp as a razor. She picked up her phone from her pajama pocket. We're not running. She looked at Ben. Take all the documents in the Ashford folder, and that policy, everything. We're taking them to my room. They returned to the master suite. Nora locked the double doors. It was 3:15 a.m. Ben placed the stack of betrayal on Nora's vanity. Nora sat on the edge of her bed, phone in hand. She wasn't calling the police. Ryan was too smart. It would take them days to process this, and he already had the depressed wife narrative ready to go. She called the one person in the world who had the power and resources to fight Ryan in a matter of hours. The phone rang once, twice. On the third ring, a gravelly but authoritative voice answered. Nora? What is it at this hour? Dad, Nora said, her voice steady, devoid of tears. I need your help. Right now. There was a brief pause. Her father, a tycoon who had built his business empire from scratch, immediately recognized the urgency in her tone. What happened? Ryan, Nora said simply. He's planning everything. She explained quickly, concisely, and factually. No emotion, just data. He's not in London, Ben confessed. Ryan forced him to isolate me. I just opened his safe. He forged my signature and transferred all of Mom's inheritance to a shell company called Horizon Global Ventures. He also took out a $50 million life insurance policy in my name, with him as the beneficiary. It became active 3 months ago. The silence on the other end was heavy. Nora could picture her father, sitting up in bed, processing every word. When he finally spoke, his voice wasn't panicked. It was the sound of fury chilled to its freezing point. I knew that boy was no good. A painful validation, her father had suspected. Where are you now? He asked. Still in the house. In the master bedroom. Ben is with me. Yes, he's the one who told me. He's terrified. Good, her father said. Listen to my instructions carefully, Nora. Do not leave that room. Lock the doors. Do not let Ben leave. He is our key witness. Do not eat or drink anything in that house. I don't know how far this bastard's plan goes. Nora's stomach churned, but she nodded as if he could see her. Okay, Dad. My team will be there in 30 minutes, not the police. My best lawyer, Arthur Graves, and my private security team. They will secure you, Ben, and all of that evidence. Don't touch anything else. Hand it all over to Arthur. Dad. Nora felt the first tremor in her voice. You are safe now, sweetheart. Her father's voice softened slightly. He picked the wrong family to mess with. He thought he married my naive daughter. He forgot he was also dealing with her father. Now hang up and wait for Arthur. The call ended. 30 minutes felt like a lifetime. Nora and Ben sat in silence in the vast room, surrounded by the evidence of a meticulously planned murder. Ben shook with fear. Nora, by contrast, felt a strange calm. Her fear had been burned away, replaced by a razor-sharp focus. She would not be a victim. She would be a hunter. Exactly 28 minutes later, she saw it from her bedroom window overlooking the main gate. 2 black, unmarked SUVs glided onto the property, their headlights off, moving with near-silent precision. They weren't guests. They were operators. Nora and Ben hurried downstairs. As they reached the foyer, 3 men in suits and 1 sharp-looking woman were already inside the front door, which the estate's security guard had clearly been instructed to open. The man in the lead, in his 50s with thin-rimmed glasses and an unflappable aura, stepped forward. Mrs. Sterling. I'm Arthur Graves. This is my team. He gestured to the 2 powerfully built men who immediately began to secure the perimeter of the foyer, and the woman who was already opening a sophisticated laptop on a console table. Mr. Graves. Nora nodded. The documents are upstairs. Ben is my witness. Excellent, Graves said. Ben. You'll come with one of my men. We need to take your statement at a secure location. Mrs. Sterling, you and I need to talk. Wait, Nora said. Before I go anywhere, I need to know one thing. Where is Ryan? Graves looked at Nora, a flicker of appreciation in his eyes. My team has been tracking him since Mr. Ashford called. As you suspected, he never passed through immigration. The woman at the laptop, an IT expert, spoke without looking up. He switched off his primary phone and is using a burner. He thought it was secure. He was wrong. She typed a few commands, then turned the laptop screen toward Nora. A map of Manhattan appeared with a steady, blinking red dot. He never left the city. He's at a penthouse at the Sterling Towers on Park Avenue, 45th floor, Unit B. Nora froze. She knew the place. It was a lavish corporate penthouse. Ryan often boasted belonged to one of his expatriate business partners. The signal has been stable there for the last 24 hours, the expert continued. He's not alone. There are 2 other cell signals registered to the same unit. Who? Nora demanded. We're dispatching a surveillance team to the penthouse lobby for a visual ID, Graves answered. Ma'am, for now we must take you to your father's house. No, Nora said, shocking both Graves and Ben. She looked at Arthur Graves, fire in her eyes. I'm not running. I'm not hiding. He took my mother's legacy and planned to have me killed in my own home. I'm staying right here. Graves looked like he was about to object. Ma'am, that's too risky. We don't know when he plans to return. That's the point. Nora cut him off. He's going to come back to this house expecting to find his stupid, unsuspecting wife. He's coming to execute the final part of his plan, and I'm going to be waiting for him. Nora turned to face the study, where the wedding portrait still hung askew, the safe gaping open like a wound. I want him to come home thinking his plan is working. We're going to set a trap. Nora turned back to Graves, her voice leaving no room for argument. Your team will protect me here, and Ben will be safe with my father. Graves was silent for a moment, studying the woman before him. This was not a terrified client. This was an Ashford. Very well, he said finally. We'll do it your way. He turned to his IT expert. Get the surveillance team on the line. I want to know who is in that penthouse with Ryan Sterling. Now. Night had bled into a pale, gray dawn. Ryan's study, a place of betrayal only hours ago, was now an emergency command center. The chill from the air conditioning mixed with the scent of strong coffee brewed by one of Graves's assistants. Nora sat in her husband's leather chair, Ryan's chair, staring at the safe, now closed. The wedding portrait slid back into place. It looked like a sick joke. Arthur Graves stood by the window, speaking in low, firm tones on his phone, coordinating asset freezes and team movements. Rena, the IT expert, sat at a console table, her fingers flying across her keyboard, her eyes scanning lines of data on 3 additional monitors she had set up. At the door, Ben stood nervously. He had already told Graves everything. One of the burly security men now held Ben's fully packed backpack. Ben, Nora called, her voice flat. Emotional exhaustion had left her numb. Ben turned, his face still pale, but the terror had subsided, replaced by a weary resignation. When you heard Ryan on the phone, did you recognize the other voice? You said someone else was with him. Ben thought hard. I'm not sure, Nora. The voice was quiet, sounded like a woman, but I couldn't make it out. They were laughing. It's okay, Nora said. Go with my father's team. You're safe now. Ben looked at her, a profound guilt in his eyes. Nora, Go. Nora cut him off, not with anger, but with finality. And don't come back. Ben nodded, then turned and disappeared. Escorted by the security team, the front door closed with a soft click. Now it was just Nora and her father's people. Graves ended his call and approached Nora. Ma'am, my team at the office is already moving. We've filed for an emergency freeze on all transfers related to Horizon Global Ventures, citing suspected fraudulent activity and forgery. For now, your money is secure, but they don't know that yet. Good, Nora said. Now I want to know who is in that penthouse. The surveillance team is in the lobby, waiting, Rena said without looking up. Target Ryan hasn't moved since last night. He must feel very secure. A false sense of security. The irony was bitter. Nora had lived in one for 2 years. Ryan is methodical, Nora said, thinking aloud. He wouldn't have done this alone. He needed someone on the inside, someone who understands the law, someone I trusted. Her mind raced through a list of business associates, friends, acquaintances. Who would betray her so completely? We don't have to guess, Graves said quietly. We just have to wait. Nora gripped the arms of the chair. The waiting was torture. Every second that passed was another second her husband, her ex-husband, in her heart was celebrating his victory. She looked at her phone, where Ryan's last text, landed safely, "Love you," was still pinned. A disgusting lie. Movement, Rena said suddenly, making Nora and Graves turn in unison. Elevator in the penthouse lobby is heading to the basement garage, she reported, her eyes glued to a screen displaying a feed from the surveillance team. 2 targets, 1 male, 1 female. They're going to a car. Get a visual, Graves commanded. Team is moving in. They're at the valet stand, getting a shot, sending now. An image file appeared on Rena's main screen. She clicked it. The picture filled the monitor, slightly blurry, taken from a distance, but undeniable. There was Ryan, wearing sunglasses despite being in an underground garage, laughing as he opened the door to a silver Mercedes coupe. And beside him, accepting the keys from a valet attendant while adjusting her Hermes bag, was a woman Nora knew all too well. Nora stopped breathing. It was Chloe Vance, her personal attorney, her best friend, the woman who had handled her mother's will, the woman she had cried to just 2 weeks ago, about how cold Ben was being to her. If finding the documents in the safe was a stab to the gut, seeing Chloe's picture next to Ryan was like having her heart ripped out. Her, Nora whispered, her voice trembling for the first time that morning. It wasn't a tremor of fear. It was the tremor of pure, white-hot rage. Chloe Vance, Graves said, his tone hardening. He recognized his rival attorney immediately. This explains everything. This wasn't just a simple forgery. He pointed at the photo. She didn't need to forge your signature, ma'am. She had legitimate specimens of it. She had access to all of your original documents. She probably had you sign the transfer deeds in a stack of routine papers. He paused. She was the legal architect behind all of this. Nausea flooded Nora again. She remembered, about 2 months ago, Chloe coming to the house with annual tax forms and portfolio updates. Nora had signed them in the dining room while they drank tea and chatted about vacation plans. She had signed away her fortune with a smile on her face. Rena, Graves commanded, now moving quickly. Chloe Vance is now the primary target. I want you to breach her law firm's servers. Look for any communication between her and Ryan, and check the incorporation status of Horizon Global Ventures. I want to know who's on the board. Already on it, sir, Rena replied, her fingers a blur. The moment you said the company name, I ran it through public incorporation records. She brought another document up on the screen. Articles of Incorporation, Horizon Global Ventures. Rena read aloud. Established 4 months ago. Registered address is a virtual office. Fictitious. Ownership structure. 1 name. Sole director. The screen stopped scrolling. Printed clearly were the words, Director. Chloe Vance. She didn't even try to hide it, Nora hissed. She was so sure I would never find out. Why would she? Graves said cynically. Her client trusted her completely, and her client's husband was her lover. They thought it was the perfect crime. After you were gone, who would be left to check? Rena suddenly interrupted. Sir, I've just broken through a firewall on Chloe's private server. There's an encrypted folder named Project NA. Damn, the encryption is strong. Work on it, Graves ordered, then turned back to Nora, his face grave. Ma'am, this is much bigger than we thought. Ryan didn't just want your inheritance. Chloe is a sharp corporate lawyer. Taking your assets was step 1. There has to be a step 2. Step 2. Nora thought of Ben's warning. The plan was moved up. He was making sure I was ready to play my part. Ben's part was to be a false witness. Ben said, Nora began, her mind working furiously, that he was supposed to testify that I was depressed and careless. Why? For what? If I died in an accident, that testimony wouldn't be that important. Correct. Graves nodded, his eyes narrowing. That kind of testimony is more useful in a criminal trial, not for an insurance claim, but to frame someone. Graves paused. He looked at Nora, then at a stack of her father's company files that also happened to be on Ryan's desk. A horrifying idea began to form. "Rena," Graves said, his voice urgent. "Chloe, did she have any access to Mr. Ashford's company?" "Yes," Nora answered first. "She handled some of our merger contracts last year. My father trusted her because she was my lawyer." Graves swore under his breath. "Rena, focus your search. Look for any transactions between Project N.A. and Ashford Industries." The room was silent for several minutes, the only sound the rhythmic tapping of Rena's keyboard. Nora held her breath, feeling as if she had fallen down a dark rabbit hole whose bottom kept receding. "Got it," Rena said. Nora and Graves moved to the screen in unison. "I found a draft email on Chloe's server. Unsent. Addressed to an anonymous contact at an investigative news portal." Rena opened the draft. It contained an anonymous tip, complete with evidence attached. "Oh my God," Nora whispered, reading the first line. The draft alleged a massive money laundering scheme within Ashford Industries. And here was the devastating part. The email claimed the mastermind behind the illegal operation was Nora Ashford, abusing her position as the owner's daughter. But that's impossible. The proof," Nora stammered. "The proof is right here," Rena said, opening an attachment. It was a series of fabricated wire transfer slips, expertly crafted to look authentic, showing huge sums of money flowing from an offshore account likely belonging to Horizon into one of Ashford Industries' divisional accounts. Chloe had access to that account from last year's merger project. Graves analyzed quickly, his face pale with rage. She could manipulate the records to make it look like an illicit cash infusion. They had found Plan A. This is brilliant," Graves said, his tone full of bitter admiration. "Ryan didn't just want to kill you for the insurance money. That's too messy. That was Plan B." He began to pace, piecing it together aloud. "Plan A is far more evil. Step 1. With Chloe's help, Ryan drains all your personal assets. They're moved to Horizon, beyond legal reach. Step 2. They create a false paper trail, framing you as a money launderer inside your own father's company. This destroys you and his biggest business rival, your father, in one move. Step 3. Ryan comes home from his business trip. Graves made air quotes, discovers this evidence of your fraud, either accidentally on your laptop or in this very safe. Step 4. He reports you to the authorities. He plays the part of the heartbroken husband, betrayed by the wife he loved. Ben testifies that you were depressed and unstable, reinforcing the narrative that you acted irrationally. Nora finished it for him, her voice empty. "I get arrested, go to prison. My father's reputation is ruined. Then Ryan divorces me while I'm helpless and goes public as the noble victim. He gets all my wealth and the world's sympathy." A thick silence filled the room. The plan was perfect. No blood, no violence, just total annihilation. "The life insurance policy," Nora finally said. "That was the backup plan." "Precisely," Graves confirmed. "If, for some reason, the prison plan failed, maybe you found the evidence first, or your father fought back successfully, they'd switch to Plan B. A tragic accident." The depressed wife, distraught after being caught embezzling, slips on the stairs. The policy pays out. End of story. A call came through on Graves's phone. He answered it. "Yes, talk to me." He listened for a full minute, his expression unreadable. Nora and Rena waited. "Thank you for the report," Graves said, then hung up. He looked at Nora. "That was my team, finishing their debrief with Ben at the safe house. His official statement confirms our theory 100%. he continued. He confessed that Ryan ordered him to constantly refer to you as unstable and erratic in every conversation. Ryan was building a narrative. And last night, Graves went on. Ben overheard Ryan's final call. Ben thought it was just a regular call, but he heard Ryan say to the person on the other end, who we now know was Chloe, "Just make sure she doesn't leave the house. If she starts getting suspicious before I get back, initiate Plan B immediately. Those stairs are slippery, right? Make sure the policy is up to date." Graves paused. Ben said Ryan's voice was casual when he said it, like he was talking about the weather. That's when Ben knew. Ryan wasn't just scamming you, Ryan was willing to kill you. He ran to your room 5 minutes later. Nora closed her eyes. Her life had been saved by the fear of a man who had tormented her for months. "Okay," Nora said, opening her eyes. Her fear was gone, replaced by ice. "So they have a Plan A and a Plan B. Now, we create a Plan C. Our plan." Graves allowed a small, thin smile. "I like the way you think, ma'am. How much time do we have?" Nora asked. Rena checked something. "The flight from London, the one he's supposed to be on, lands the day after tomorrow, day 5. "No," Nora said. "He's not in London. He's in Midtown. He could come home any time." "He won't," Graves countered. "He has to maintain his cover. He'll come home on schedule, as planned. That gives us approximately 48 hours. What do? "We quietly freeze Chloe's assets as well," Graves said. "We gather all of this evidence, we prepare criminal and civil charges, but most importantly," he looked directly at Nora, "we let him come home." 48 hours passed in a blur. The house was now a silent fortress. From the outside, everything looked normal. The gardener watered the plants, the porch lights came on as usual, but inside, everything had changed. Ben was at a secret location, protected around the clock. Graves's security team, now dressed in plain clothes as new household staff, had taken over the guest pavilion. Rena had transformed the basement home theater into a monitoring hub. Pinhead-sized microphones and fiber-optic cameras had been covertly installed in every corner of the study, the master bedroom, the living room, and the dining room. Every word Ryan spoke upon his return would be recorded. Graves and Rena would be in the monitoring room, listening in real time. Security teams were on standby, ready to move in seconds. Nora was alone in the master bedroom. She had just finished showering. She looked at her reflection in the mirror. She looked tired. Good. That fit the narrative. But her eyes were too sharp, too alert. "Mrs. Sterling," Graves's voice came softly through a tiny earpiece concealed in her ear. "Remember, you know nothing. You are simply a lonely wife, a little annoyed that her husband was away for so long. You don't need to provoke him. Let him lead. He has a script in his head. Let him play his part. Let him find his fake evidence. Let him accuse you. We need him to say it out loud. We need his confession." "I understand," Nora whispered back. She picked up a brush, fixing her hair for her final performance. She applied a touch of concealer and a neutral lipstick, just enough to look normal. She chose a simple house dress. She had to look like the Nora Ryan knew. Soft, a little naive, and above all, trusting. Ping. Her phone lit up on the nightstand. A new text from Ryan. "Plane just landed, honey. Got my bags. A little traffic on the expressway. Can't wait to hold you. Home in an hour. Love you." Nora's heart hammered once, hard, as adrenaline flooded her system. This was it. She took a deep breath, steadying her shaking hands. She typed a reply, her thumbs moving surely over the screen. "Miss you too. Drive safe, Ryan. I'll be waiting at home." She put the phone down. She stood, walked to the window, and looked out at the empty driveway. "Come home, darling," Nora thought, a chill running down her spine. "Come on home. I have a surprise for you." The hour felt like a lifetime. Nora sat on the sofa in the living room, a cup of cold tea on the coffee table before her. She had deliberately not waited in the bedroom. She wanted to look natural, as if she were just relaxing. In her ear, the tiny earpiece was silent, a sign that Graves and Rena were in total listening mode in the basement. At 5:30 p.m., the familiar sound of a car engine crunched on the gravel driveway. A black Mercedes G-Wagon pulled up to the front entrance. Nora's heart thudded a painful, singular beat. Cold adrenaline coursed through her veins. He was here. Nora heard the front door open, the sound of a rolling suitcase. "Honey, I'm home." Ryan's warm, longing voice echoed through the foyer. The same voice that used to make her run into his arms now made her stomach turn. Nora rose from the sofa, smoothed her dress, and walked out of the living room. Ryan stood in the foyer, taking off his sunglasses. He looked exactly as she expected, a little tired from the flight, his tie loosened, but his smile was wide and full of love, an actor at the top of his game. "Ryan, welcome back," Nora said, forcing her voice to sound relieved, perhaps a little flat. She could pass it off as annoyance for being left alone so long. Ryan opened his arms. "Is that all? No hug for your husband?" Nora stepped forward and let the man embrace her. It was torture. Her body was rigid. The scent of oud and tobacco she once loved now smelled of lies and murder plots. She could feel the steady beat of his heart against her chest, the heartbeat of a master liar. "I missed you so much," Ryan whispered in her ear, holding her tight. "I know," Nora thought. "You missed my assets. You missed my insurance policy." She gently pulled away. "How was London?" "Exhausting," Ryan sighed, picking up his briefcase. "Tough meetings, annoying clients, but it's all done." He looked at Nora, his eyes scanning her face. "You okay?" The house was quiet? "Quiet." Nora nodded, turning and walking back toward the living room, forcing Ryan to follow. Ben was his usual charming self. She dropped Ben's name intentionally, needing to see Ryan's reaction. As expected, a flicker of irritation crossed Ryan's eyes before it was masked by an understanding smile. "Ah, that kid. Don't worry about him. He won't be bothering you much longer." A veiled threat. "Not after my plan works. The important thing is I'm here now, and I didn't come back empty-handed," Ryan said, his smile turning slightly sly. "I've got something for you." "Oh?" Nora sat back on the sofa, forcing a thin smile. "A souvenir?" "No," Ryan said, setting his briefcase on the floor. "Not from London. It's something I put away before I left. Something very important. It's in the study. Come on." This was it. The bait was cast. The script had begun. "Now, Ryan, I was just about to have the cook start dinner." Nora feigned a slight reluctance to seem natural. "Just for a minute, honey. This is important," Ryan insisted, his voice soft but firm. "All right," Nora said, rising. Her heart was now beating like a war drum. She followed her husband down the corridor to the study. His confident, broad back looked so familiar, yet so monstrous. In her ear, the earpiece remained silent. Her team was waiting. Ryan opened the study door. The room was exactly as Nora and Graves had left it. Dark, the heavy curtains drawn. "Why's it so dark in here?" Ryan muttered, acting confused. He flipped the main light switch. Nothing happened. Graves had killed the main breaker from the panel, leaving only a single, dimly lit desk lamp in the corner, creating a controlled, dramatic atmosphere. Weird. Must be a wiring issue. Ryan feigned annoyance. He walked to his desk, where the only light emanated from the small reading lamp. Ah, well, no matter. Nora stood near the door, watching his every move. "I put it in here." Ryan opened the main desk drawer. It was empty. He opened the second drawer. Also empty. Graves's team had cleaned them out. A flash of genuine confusion crossed Ryan's face. This was off script. He hadn't expected the drawers to be completely empty. "Where did—" he mumbled. Then, as if remembering, "Oh, of course, I put it in the safe." Silly me. Good acting, Nora thought. Making the safe the last resort. Ryan turned to the wedding portrait. "Sorry, honey, should have remembered." He slid the painting aside, revealing the black safe. Nora held her breath. Ryan entered the code. Beep, 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 click. The safe door hissed open. Ryan reached inside, expecting to find the fully loaded safe he had left. Instead, his hand met empty space. What the? He stuck his head closer, and there, in the middle of a bare shelf, was the only object in the safe. A single, maroon file folder, labeled in large letters, Ashford Industries, Secret Transfers. It was the bait planted by Graves's team. Ryan, his confusion now mixed with a rising panic, pulled the folder out. He didn't understand what was happening, but he had to get back to his script. He opened the folder, under the dim desk lamp. Inside were the copies of the documents Chloe had created to frame Nora, the fake wire slips, the offshore account orders. Ryan's face transformed instantly. This was his moment. He spun around to face Nora, his expression a perfect mask of shock, horror, and profound disappointment. "Nora," his voice trembled. "What is this?" Nora just stared at him, silent. This is your signature," Ryan snapped, fake rage taking over. You transferred your father's money to an account in the Cayman Islands?" "Nora, what have you done?" He strode forward, holding the documents up to Nora's face. "Explain this, Nora. Explain it to me." Nora didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She didn't defend herself. She just looked at her husband with cold eyes, then slowly shifted her gaze to the darkest corner of the room behind him. "I don't think," a calm voice broke the silence, "that she has to explain anything, Mr. Sterling." Click. The main lights of the room suddenly flooded on, blinding Ryan. He gasped and spun around. There, in the doorway Nora had just passed through, stood Arthur Graves. Behind him were two uniformed police officers. And in the corner of the room, sitting in an armchair that had been hidden in the darkness, was Nora's father. His face was like granite. Ryan's world collapsed in a single second. The flush of fake anger drained from his face, leaving it a pasty white. The documents in his hand trembled and scattered to the floor. What the hell is this?" Ryan's voice was barely a whisper. His eyes darted from Nora's father to Graves, to the police, and back to Nora. "Mr. Ashford, why are there police in my house?" Ryan tried to summon the last dregs of his arrogance. "This is my daughter's house." Her father's voice was low and dangerous, "and you are no longer welcome here." Cornered, Ryan immediately switched to his only remaining tactic: attack. He pointed to the documents on the floor, then at Nora. "It was her. I just found it. She's been embezzling from your company. She framed me. Arrest her." He screamed at the police. Graves let out a short, mirthless laugh. "A very interesting accusation, Mr. Sterling, especially since the documents you just found were copies we placed in your empty safe 30 minutes ago." Ryan's eyes widened. "Empty safe?" "That's right," Graves continued, stepping into the room. "The originals, the forged deeds to Mrs. Sterling's properties, the illegal transfers to Horizon Global Ventures, we've already secured them as evidence, along with the $50 million life insurance policy you so thoughtfully arranged." The color drained completely from Ryan's face. He knew he was caught, but he still had one card to play. "Ben," he shouted, his eyes looking wildly around. "It was all Ben. He did it. He hates Nora. He has gambling debts. He framed me to save himself." He turned to Nora, trying to play his last card as the husband. "Nora, baby, believe me, it was all Ben. He manipulated us." "Be quiet, Ryan." That one sentence, spoken in Nora's cold, emotionless voice, stopped Ryan dead. He stared at his wife, shocked to see a woman completely different from the one he'd married. "Ah, Ben," Graves said, as if just remembering. "Right, your false witness. Unfortunately for you, his testimony differs slightly from the script you prepared." Graves gave a signal. Rena, the IT expert, stepped in holding a large tablet. "We took Mr. Ben Sterling's official statement 2 days ago at a secure location," Graves explained. Rena pressed play. A video of Ben appeared on the screen. His face was pale, but he spoke clearly. He recounted everything. Ryan's orders to isolate Nora, the threats using his gambling debts, the command to be a false witness against Nora in court, and then, the final blow. And last night, Ben's voice trembled in the video. He called from a local number. He told someone, "Make sure she doesn't leave the house. If she starts getting suspicious, initiate Plan B." He said, "Those stairs are slippery, right? Make sure the policy is active." He laughed. He laughed like he was ordering coffee. That's when I knew he was going to kill Nora. The video stopped. Ryan staggered back. "He's lying. He's lying. Her father threatened him. You forced him." "We didn't have to force anyone," Graves said calmly. Ryan was gasping, his devious mind searching for an escape. There was none. Ben had confessed, but it was still his word against Ben's. "It's not enough," Ryan yelled. "It's the word of an addict. You have no proof. I spoke to him. You have no proof." "Oh, but we do," Graves interjected. "In fact, we didn't just rely on Mr. Sterling. We much prefer the testimony of your plan's chief architect." Ryan froze. "Architect?" "Rena," Graves said. Rena played another video on the tablet. This time it wasn't a statement. It was CCTV footage from the lobby of the Park Avenue penthouse, recorded 2 days ago. The screen showed Ryan, who was supposed to be in London, kissing a woman passionately in front of an elevator. Ryan's face turned to ash. He knew who it was. "Miss Chloe Vance," Graves said, as if announcing a winner. "Your lover, Mrs. Sterling's attorney, and the sole director of Horizon Global Ventures." Where is she?" Ryan whispered. Graves glanced at his watch. "At this very moment, Miss Vance is signing a full confession at FBI headquarters. We arrested her an hour ago at her law firm, just as she was preparing to welcome you home." Ryan stared at Graves in horror. "You see," Graves explained lightly, "lawyers tend to be very cooperative when faced with irrefutable evidence of document forgery, tax evasion, insurance fraud, and conspiracy to commit murder. Her loyalty to you evaporated rather quickly, Mr. Sterling. She gave us everything. Her firm's servers, her personal hard drives, and most interestingly, her insurance policy. Recordings of every single phone call between the two of you." Graves smiled coldly. "Including the call where you architected Plan A, framing Mrs. Sterling for money laundering, and the detailed call where you discussed Plan B and the slippery stairs. She even told us you planned to execute it tonight after you found the fake evidence." That was the end. There was nothing left to say, no one left to blame. Ryan was surrounded, betrayed by his co-conspirator, and perfectly trapped by the woman he had deemed a fool. One of the police officers stepped forward, producing a pair of handcuffs. "Ryan Sterling," the officer said in a firm voice, "you are under arrest for suspicion of document forgery, fraud, embezzlement, and the attempted murder of Nora Ashford Sterling." The click of the handcuffs locking around Ryan's wrists was loud in the silent room. He didn't resist. He just stood there, shaking with rage and defeat. As he was led away, he looked at Nora one last time, his handsome face now a mask of pure hatred. Nora didn't move. She just stared back, her eyes as cold as ice, until her husband disappeared around the corner of the hall. 6 months later, Grand Central Terminal was a chaotic symphony of announcements, footsteps, and the low rumble of trains. In the corner of a quiet cafe, Nora sat with a black coffee. On a TV above the bar, a morning news segment briefly showed the faces of Ryan and Chloe. Ryan had been sentenced to 20 years in prison as the mastermind. Chloe Vance received 12 years for her cooperation. Nora wasn't watching. She was waiting. A young man with a simple backpack approached her table. He was thinner, his hair was cut neatly, and his eyes were no longer wild. It was Ben. "Nora," he said quietly, sitting across from her uninvited. "Your train leaves in 10 minutes, Nora stated, her voice even. "I know. I just wanted to say thank you." In exchange for his crucial testimony, Ben had received legal protection. Nora's father had paid off his remaining debts and given him a second chance, a new identity, and a job on a ranch out west. This was his departure. Nora pushed a thick envelope across the table. "This is to start your new life." Ben looked at the envelope, then at Nora. "Nora, I am so sorry. Truly." Nora took a sip of her coffee. It was bitter, but she was used to it now. "I will never forgive you, Ben," she said softly, but firmly. Ben flinched, the pain clear on his face. "I will never forget what it felt like," Nora continued, looking him straight in the eye. "To be hated and isolated in my own home by someone who was supposed to be my family. You played your part. You were part of their plan to destroy me mentally before they took my life." Tears welled in Ben's eyes. "I know, and I will live with that guilt forever." "Good," Nora said. There was a brief silence between them. "But," she added, setting her cup down, "that night you knocked on my door. You could have run, you could have let me die, but you didn't." She stood, adjusting her blazer. "That envelope isn't from me. It's payment from my father for your testimony, and the fact that you are alive and free is my payment for my life." She looked at Ben one last time. "We're even, Ben. I owe you nothing, and you owe me nothing." The announcement for Ben's train echoed through the station. "Live a good life," Nora said. "Don't waste this chance." Ben could only nod, too ashamed to speak. "Take care, Nora." Nora didn't reply. She turned, put on her sunglasses, and walked out of the station. She didn't look back. She stepped from the dim shadows of the terminal into the bright morning sun. She was no longer naive. She was no longer afraid. She was free.